Yo, what is up, theology nerds? This is Trip, and I'm here with the one and the only, the Bo Daddy. What's up, Bo?
Welcome to the home of techno-feudalism.
Hey, don't get me distracted.
I know, I'm sorry.
Bo, you can't be like, oh, we're going to do 3 letters today. And I'm like, but I got 27 slides for the letter B. And then make a joke about techno-feudalism right after I just wrote a whole essay on it.
This show is going to be weird because we're 2 hours delayed due to snow. In
2 hours and 2 weeks delayed.
Yes. So, and I don't even know if we let people know we were going to be here, so we might not have a chat section. We don't know if we're going to have a chat section.
Lori and Kyle are already in the chat.
Oh, good. And then the pre-show banter was so deep and distracting. It was so today's going to be a little bit odd. I know, I can feel it.
You can feel it?
Yeah. I feel it in my spirit, feel it in my bones.
Ooh.
Do you know that song? You don't know that song from the revival in Belfast?
I wasn't at the revival in Belfast. I am more of a revival in the South, like Southern Baptist revivals. I know those.
Okay.
Like Just As I Am.
Oh, yeah. Just as I am without one plea.
Yeah. But you know what my favorite is?
No.
Like, I was like, I'm not walking the aisle to make my public confession of faith unless you give me that I have decided to follow Jesus.
Yes.
Which is still a banger. Still a banger. Actually, I would like to recommend it to Baptist again.
Okay.
Perhaps this would be a good time for them to consider whether or not they actually decided to follow Jesus.
It's painful out there right now. The world behind me, the cross before me.
Yeah. And they were like, but what if you're moonwalking?
Wait, I'm assuming.
So they're moonwalking, so they're looking at the cross. They're just getting further and further away from it, right into the orange menace's grips.
So let's be honest. I know I don't like dealing in politics early in the show because then we never pull back out. And I don't, here's the thing. If we had it before, we did cross over the Rubicon this week with the prayer breakfast.
God.
We definitely crossed over. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm horrified and disturbed at a brand new level. You know the little boy who cried? I feel like the little boy who cried wolf.
But what was your favorite moment of that prayer breakfast? You know, the one with the guy who said, quote, I've never asked God for forgiveness of anything, end quote.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did he have any thoughts? Like,
yeah.
Did the prayer touch him? Like, or maybe so much that he remembered, I don't know, being on an island and touching underage chicks. There's always that. Did he?
He never surprises me. it's his supporters that I pay attention to. He's fairly predictable. It's his supporters that I'm like, the story about Mike Johnson wanting to say grace before eating, and just having never read the Bible. The fact that those were met with laughter, yeah, we definitely, like, some people thought we were in trouble before, but we have definitely reached a new low.
Oh, yeah. The problem is, see, John, it's like we go further across the Rubicon each week. See, what's funny is it's no longer even called the Rubicon. It's called Trump Waterway. And
You renamed it.
he renamed it.
Oh man, we yeah, it is dystopian in a way. Like, the books I read as a kid. Oh man, listen. Oh, here, let's. This is a better way to start this. I haven't made any videos since mid-December, but I have a log of ones that I want to make, just a running tally, a ledger. The one that I've been waiting to make is I want to ask everybody to be a little bit understanding, a little bit gracious. For those of us who were raised to fear the government sending masked agents who would rip us out of our cars, bust into our homes, like,
Probably steal your Bible.
we were told that either the president, probably the president, but maybe the Pope, but the president would be a snake oil salesman who would seduce the people of God in an apostasy, make a covenant with Israel, would be in alliance with Russia secretly. Like, everything we were told is right growing up that I no longer believe, but I'm watching it unfold daily in the headlines. I'm just going to ask everybody, you have to understand, for those of us who were raised with evangelical end times eschatology, this is a very difficult thing because I've moved on from that, but the people who taught it to me are supporting it. And I can't quite wrap my brain around it. So I'm asking for patience.
Oh, I don't know, Bo. I don't know.
I told you last week, or whenever we last recorded, it would make more sense to me if we all died in COVID and we are stuck in somebody's nightmare. That would make more sense to me.
Oh God, I don't know. We should just talk about some bees.
Let's go.
I'm sure we'll bring this back up.
Here's what we're gonna try today. I'm gonna set a timer for 20 minutes, and we're gonna give the letter B 20 minutes. We're gonna give the letter C 20 minutes, and the letter D 20 minutes, because we're several weeks behind.
I know, but I want to know what is the over under on how many letters we actually get through if you were gambling. Since it's Super Bowl week.
Normally, I would say 2, except that D is so the segue to D is so beautiful from C. It's yeah. We might get through all 3.
Okay, we might. Well, let's do it.
All right. Oh no! I lost Trip. Oh, there he is. Oh my gosh!
I got nothing, though. I don't know what's happening in the world.
Oh my goodness! So somebody said the over/under is 1.5. That's it. Oh, Sanders, nice.
Yeah.
Kyle Steven Sanders. All right, you ready?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going to introduce B, but I know you have more material on it than I do, and I'm actually looking to you because of your Baptist background to get us through some understandings of baptism belonging, okay? So, here we go. The letter B is for belonging. Our question is, when you say we, as in we the people, who do you mean? So when you say we, who are you picturing? Who belongs? Okay? And the reason this is important to me is twofold. One, as central as baptism is to the Christian tradition, one of the things that fascinates me is that there is very little specificity about how we should do it, when we should do it, and who should be allowed to do it. So, it is our belonging. It is the equivalent for Christians, you could make the case, of what circumcision is for in the Jewish tradition. But that for male and female, we come in to the body of Christ through the waters of baptism and a confession of faith. Okay? And yet, as central as everyone thinks it is, there is no mode or modality that is universally agreed upon. And I find this fascinating because unlike Islam, when you were to ask, say, when should someone pray, right? How many times a day? What direction should they face, right? All of that is prescripted. But in Christianity, it's so loosey-goosey. Now, everyone knows baptism is important, but the way it should be done, not. So some traditions sprinkle water on infants. Some baptize teenagers at camp after they come to faith. Some, after confession during when your young people come through confirmation and confirm their own faith, everyone remembers their baptism, right? Because they're baptized as infants. Immersion is a popular way of dunking someone under the water. But some people think you should do it once, right? In Jesus' name. Others think you should dunk 3 times in the name, one of the Father, then of the Son, then of the Holy Spirit. So you get 3 dunks. Some think it's okay to do it in a pool. Others have a baptismal font built into the church, a dunk tank. Others have one on a pedestal that you sprinkle water over or you pour it over people's heads. And some think you have to go to nature. Just like Jesus went to the Jordan River, we can go to a body of water, whether it's the ocean in Palos Verdes or the river wherever you live. There is no agreed upon modality for baptism, and I find this fascinating because in the early churches there was something called the teaching of the 12.
Oh, you don't got to tell Baptists about the Didache.
The Didache. And in the Didache there is actually a flow chart that says here's the order of preference. If you have moving water, use moving water. If you don't have moving water, use still water. If you don't use still water, you can pour it over somebody's head. It gets all the way down, and the final one is if you don't even have that, you can use spittle.
Yeah. And you want to know what is not in the flow chart of the Didache, which is older than half the New Testament?
What?
Infants. Just saying. It's a flow chart for adult baptism.
Yeah.
If Christianity is an adult religion.
Yes.
You told me to be Baptist, so I am.
Thank you. And
if you want me to dial it back for ecumenical inclusiveness, I can.
And infant baptism came in largely, or became as popular as it is, largely through Christendom, which calls into question several other things about belonging. But I am fascinated with the nature of Christianity in contrast to Judaism and in contrast to Islam, which get grouped together as the Abrahamic faiths. That baptism, for me, as central as it is, I think it says something really interesting about Christianity, that there is no agreed upon method by which to do it or who gets to do it. Because in some traditions, it has to be the priest, right? That's sacerdotal. And in others, your parents can do it if there's no pastor around. And like, I know some people who've even baptized themselves because they had this moment of ecstatic experience with the Lord and felt, quote unquote, led to do that. I think that's in outside all parameters, because coming into community, you can't baptize yourself. That's the entire point of baptism. But all of that is to say, in the last 500-600 years, baptism has been very contentious. In fact, 500 years ago, Christians of one stripe were still killing, like murdering other Christians, either because of the way they did baptism or because of who did their baptism, and it didn't count. And then some people thought you needed to be re-baptized, and some people said no, even if you were baptized by a corrupt Catholic priest, it counts. There's only one baptism. So I am fascinated that something so central to Christian belonging, how we come to be a part of the faith, has almost no parameters, no boundaries. It is so unclear as to what counts and doesn't, that it stands like it would make more sense to me if you could only be baptized in the Jordan River or a river, right? Or something. But there's none of that. We have none of that. So, thoughts from my Baptist friend.
Well, I'll just say, like, the question of baptism for Protestants, and the same with debates about the Eucharist, both of them are contentious in part because the birth of Protestantism and all its varieties, and then the tensions between Catholics, Protestants, and the radical reformers, all had layers of political power and such going on, that those early fights were also, connected to, oh, well, this city-state's Reformed, this one's Lutheran, this is Catholic. So, those of us in the Free Church tradition were spurned on each side. This past summer, when we were in Zurich, I took Elgin.
Yeah.
And the whole family's there, but Elgin got the speech because he's old enough to where, good old Reformed head of Zurich was like, look at old Felix Mons. He's an Anabaptist. He had a believer's baptism, and we don't like that. We're going to baptize him again and just hold him down here in the river till he's done. And Felix is like, but I thought we were trying to take the Bible seriously. And he's in prison, and he writes, and I read sections of it, out loud to the family, because that's what they wanted to do on vacation. And I'm like, look, this is why I don't trust anytime politics and religion get tied up into the same identity formation, because one goes into the bedroom with an STD and they both go home with it. And that's why Baptists like separation of church and state. Why? Because you don't want a church full of people that are just there seeking political power in the world. You want a church who are actually brought into the body of Christ. That's why for Baptists, your baptism is like your birth certificate. It is a decision you make freely with your own conscience to identify to Jesus as Savior and Lord, that the way of Jesus is the one you're going to walk as a broken sinner in the context of grace, and that you chose to be a part of a body, a community that spans across the globe, and your allegiance is to a community whose allegiance is to Christ, which means it's an allegiance to your neighbor and your enemy. And so you have to have a birth certificate, because there's nothing about being human in our biological and psychological mechanisms that says you are to bind yourself to the least of these, to the other, and across all the boundaries where the incentives of market and politics want you to tribal up.
Wow.
Now, to me, it is like there's also this bit, and here's where when Bonhoeffer talks about baptism, he emphasizes that baptism is an act where you're acted upon. It's not a human work. It is the actual place in which we transfer from the realm of the world to the body of Christ. That's the language he uses.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a cost signaling activity. If you're thinking of like mechanisms that make religion more believable, it's that this should cost you something. It's a transformation of your identity. You're not to have the same orientation you had before. And that's why for Baptists and the Free Church, like you probably should be able to get pregnant or get someone pregnant before you do it, because you aren't even in a context to think about your own selfhood and orientation in the world, so which leads to, you telling your kid when they're like 8 and they're like, I want to get baptized. And you're like, nah, not yet. I'm glad you want to. And that's a decision I will celebrate when you have a better idea of what you're doing. Now I will say this is funny. In Tillich's systematic theology, he was really irritated with people that made, he had what he called a realistic view of baptism, and that the elements are a necessary bearer of power. And so, like, there's this, some people see it, it's realistic in the sense that it is both like a symbolic one, right? Like water is a picture of the birth process, of the dying and this kind of thing. It's ritualistic in the sense, like plenty of rituals, it's a command, like you mentioned the didache, we do it this way. But he's like, it should be realistic in that it's only baptism when it becomes a bearer of power that transforms the individual and their orientation in the world. And so, like, to me, that's kind of, and even if you think of a lot of the language of the body of Christ and stuff in Paul, so much of it, right? Like if you think of the Galatians passage, or in 1 Corinthians when he's talking about diversity in the body of Christ, or the different parts, the notion that brought one to faith was pistis, right? Like trust. It wasn't your ethnic group or your race or blood or tribe or land, and that it was different than all the other religions, and that's why it was so weird in a Roman context and burdensome to Jewish people who were like, it's ethnically bound, like you should get snipped, then you can be Christian Jew. Or the Romans are like, you want everybody to potentially join a religion that gets all the exemptions that Jewish people do to paying taxes while worshiping Caesar, these kinds of things. But you're going to go like try to recruit everyone for it. Why? Well, you think this is reasonable?
Like right? a proselytizing faith.
Yeah, a proselytizing faith that gets to make universal claims on you. And so to me, when we think about how it functioned both in the early church, like the Didache, or in missions of Paul, or if we even think before that, how did it function for John the Baptist historically? A kind of reenactment of political liberation. That's why it was specifically the Jordan, right? Though I would say being baptized into Christ is similar to being baptized in the Jordan, because you're baptizing into the body of one executed by the state. So, I mean, it is a revolutionary thing, right? Like if you only get John's baptism by going to the Jordan, because that's what you cross for liberation, when you're being baptized not into the church but into Christ, you're being baptized into someone executed by the state. And God was like, death overrated, check this out, it's called resurrection. So I think that is still present, and it could be there, but when I think of like the belonging question in baptism, and then the ecumenical space, because I've worked at churches that do infant baptism, I think you should just do it really well.
Yeah.
Like, I think we know plenty of Baptists that like would not think that being a Baptist problematizes your allegiance white nationalism. Like, so so it's not being done well, right? Like that's not what you're being baptized into. Yeah. And there are plenty of times that the critique that a lot of Anabaptists and people have towards infant baptism is true. But then there are times you can do it really well. Like when I would do baptisms for children, you're to do it in a way that you're reminding everyone in the congregation that this gift, this new identity was given to you, and it's a promissory one. You get to grow into it. And then you're reminded of those promises we make as a community every time we make them to a new kid, a kid that doesn't have words yet. They're going to discover, if we do our job as family, friends, neighbors, the body of Christ, that they're known and loved completely. And then they're going to come to trust that love. And then they're going to realize that the truth that they were baptized into is the truth of everyone they encounter. Right? Like you can see, it becomes beautiful. It's very gospel-centered. It might not be what you'd think was normative in the New Testament, except for that one bit in Acts where the household was baptized. And then we can squeeze in infant baptism in it. But like, to me, baptism, if we think of the function it played, can be done beautifully and disastrously in any form. But in the modern context, I actually think the believer's baptism, because it latches on to the individualism of modernity in ways that we then focus on the choice as opposed to the consequence of it. And so there are ways in which infant baptism, when done well in a community that does it well, is actually more significant at undermining the individual tendencies and the drive for autonomy and modernity in ways that, when infant baptism also came with your citizenship in Christendom, it didn't do. Right? So I'm very comfortable when I've worked at different churches being like, let's do this as good as possible. And with infant baptism, that also changes how you do confirmation. I think we should do it later, just like I think we should baptize people later. Like, wait till they're 15 to 18. Don't do it when they're 12.
Agree.
And
so as a practical theologian and a practitioner, the two biggest challenges that I run into with infant baptism, because when I became United Methodist, I had never done infant baptism. We dedicated children to the Lord as an evangelical, and so infant baptism was a new thing for me. And the biggest thing that I run into is that because I am an outreach pastor, and we always are having new folks come into the church who maybe grew up in some other tradition, or maybe were raised Methodist, but it didn't take, and they're coming back later to give it a new try because we have a fresh expression. That's what we call it. And here's the two things I run into the most. One, people who want to be baptized, and I say, were you baptized as an infant? And they'll say, yeah, but it didn't mean anything to me. And I'll say, here's the bad news. It worked. You're here. We're having this conversation. So you can remember your baptism. We'll do it. But I just want you to know, I'm not going to baptize you again. Your first baptism worked. And so that can be some confusion. Then the other problem I run into is...
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
I've had this... here's how I came around to thinking about it when someone's really insistent. Is I go, well, maybe let's think about this as a baptism of identification, because Jesus, not a sinner, didn't need baptism, but at his baptism, he was identifying with all the rest of us.
Interesting.
You don't need baptism. You've already received it. You're in the body of Christ. We already settled this at the lapse controversy. Who does it and when you do it and how you do it is insignificant towards the gift of grace that is established in it. But, if like Jesus, you want a baptism of identification, then that was how Tripp came up with his internal logic. When other clergy look at me and be like, oh, God, this is what happens when a theologian, like, they want to get baptized. Like, you're trying to tell someone no.
Right.
And I was like, but it's not about that.
Yeah. The second problem I run into is young parents who don't want to baptize. They're not sure they want to baptize their child because they want the child to be able to pick their religion for themselves. They don't want to raise them in any specific way because they want the kid to be able to make their own choice. And I say, so you're not teaching them to speak, like, because you don't want to pick their language for them. So you're not gonna right. You're not gonna do any parenting, grooming, conditioning, training. It's only in religion that we do this. We with their
Yeah,
diets.
it's because modernity, like the whole solution for modernity was religion isn't a threat to the economic system and the political system if we just let them privatize it. And so, well, since it's just private, it has nothing to do with everything else in your life. It makes such a little claim on you. It's an elective for your identity. So let's just let them, free float this decision till later. I'm like, okay, that seems like a bad idea.
Well, we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about another B word, which is bipartisan politics. And I only want to throw it in as a contrast. So, in this series that we're doing, I'm picking an ancient word, a theological word, and then a contemporary word. And we're pairing them together to see if they can speak to one another. So, when it comes to bipartisan politics, here's my thought trip. I had the privilege, the luxury of living in Canada for a while. And in Canada, I was introduced to parliamentary politics because there are like 6 major political parties. None of them usually have a majority on their own, and so they must form what's called a coalition government. And it changes your mentality. The reason that I am a big fan of this is because when we talked about the argument culture in A, the line that really stood out to me was when it used to be that there was a problem to be solved, but in the argument culture, it has changed. It's an argument to be won. And therefore, we don't compromise. We don't reach across the aisle. We don't do coalition government. It is a zero-sum game. And this is why the Dems, for the most part, vote the party line, and the Republicans vote their party line, and there is so little cooperation, collaboration, and compromise in Congress that this bipartisan politics isn't about belonging anymore. It's about tribal identity. And when we say we the people, we don't mean everyone. We mean...
Really? You mean like so much that you might give more money to ICE than the CIA and then not have it actually go to places with large numbers of the violent immigrants in scare quotes that you're wanting to deport, but just to blue cities, and that you might dial back the pressure that includes murder of citizens in those cities if you handed over voter rolls? Like, would you do something crazy like that? Not in a democracy. That's crazy, Bo.
Yeah. We are broken. It's not just congressional gridlock anymore. That used to be the big problem. This thing has moved not just in degree, it has become a different kind of division. And this bipartisan system needs to be reimagined because the way that we conceptualize of who is us excludes vast numbers of people in a way that we will never be able to address the challenges in front of us with this us versus them mentality. It can't be done.
Okay, so 2 things. One, bipartisanship's a masquerade for oligarchic rule. It's like the ugly joke that offers alternative rhetorics but maintains the same underlying plutarchic domination system. And just look at the Epstein files.
Whoa.
Like, we got Donald Trump being like, y'all got to be nice to the Clintons. You think he's being nice to the Clintons? Well, I wonder what they have in common. Anyway, but like the image our bipartisan system has me think. You know the movie or book Snowpiercer?
No.
Okay, so there's like this giant speed train. It's like where all humans live on the planet at this point.
Okay.
And so you can't get off the train. And at the very front of the train, you have like the engine, and it's going all on there. And the engine on the train, you can't escape. Like, it's the engine is like capital. It's the perpetual growth. and the engine has to keep moving, or like everyone's screwed. That's what, at least what everyone believes in the story.
Okay.
And then there's like all the carts, and then all the carts have the different classes. They're trying to move up and down. They're playing games, and no one. The thing is, it doesn't matter what happens in the train, because it's on a track, and the engine's going, and whatever happens in the rest of it, Snowpiercer is running around in the cold earth, now screwed up, and you can move around the chairs. You can, but it's all being kept in check, providing the necessary labor to keep the engine moving. And so it's like we've created a world where there's a closed system moving towards some unknown destination, and everybody on the system, it's called bipartisan. Here's like the fiction of decision making, but the passengers, they're all like, there's no alternative. It's just like we got these different things to pick from. And so you fight for position on a plane rather than on the train, rather than stopping the engine. And like, I think like that's what happens. Like, we're in a system where there's like a giant bipartisan masquerade, but the oligarchic rule is all chill up front, doing their thing. And as long as everyone thinks there's no alternative to being on the train, then it will keep doing ugly, stupid stuff like we're watching. But the whole point is to have the train going. And but if you act like, oh, there's the drama of who's doing what, as long as we keep feeding the engine of the train, oh, we got a little more labor input here. Oh, we got a little. That's what I feel like we're at.
Wow. I was in a conversation with a couple friends of mine. One has a kid who's not doing so well, and the insurance company is being stinkers about what they'll pay for treatment. And
really? I thought they were like there to help people have like healthy lives.
And another one of my friends in this text string has a home in the hills of California and can't get fire insurance, but he also can't keep his rental agreement unless he has fire insurance, but he can't get fire insurance. And I texted and said to my friends, this is why I don't believe in conspiracy theories. We don't need them. We already, right? Like, insurance is a conspiracy, both in healthcare and in flood and fire. I don't need any secret cabal behind the scenes pulling the strings. They're out in public. We don't need conspiracy theories. They're doing it in public. That's what that makes me think of. All right, we're going to move to the letter C.
All right.
We can circle back to B, but you ready?
I don't even know what the C words are.
Okay. C is for constructivism.
Oh.
Yeah. And here's my simple introduction. In the academy, one of the things you have to do is you have to be explicit. You have to locate yourself about your commitments, including your philosophical lens. And so I am a proud convert to social constructivism. That is my preferred perspective, and I'm very committed to it. And so anytime I get a chance to sell a group, whether it's a Sunday school group or a seminary classroom, I try and sell them on this idea of social constructivism. The easiest explanation or definition of social constructivism is that the realities that we look at, material matters, right? Seemingly concrete realities. A social construction is one that only maintains its influence or power, its effectiveness, as people participate in it. It's not, so for instance, race is the famous one. People who study such things say, biologically, there is no such thing as race. But race is powerful in that as people participate in racial categories, it maintains its concrete consequences, right? The economy is another one. If we all agreed that seashells were valuable and that trading them was, right, how we participated in an economy, monetary. So that would, because the dollar is just a piece of paper, right? It's a signifier, a representative, a symbol of, it used to be a gold standard, that there was money somewhere in a bank that dollar represented. But now, with the digital binary code of zeros and ones and Bitcoin and so many other things, we have moved into a time where economically, monetarily, money is a social construction. My favorite one is state lines. If you look at the planet Earth from, say, a picture from the moon or a satellite, there are no straight lines on this planet. But when you look at a map where state lines have been imposed, there are often very perpendicular lines, right, to meridians, and those are state lines are socially constructed. So that's the basic introduction. And so I played a game trip where I limited myself to words that start with C. So I'd introduced this to my Sunday school class, and I limited myself to words that start with C and things that are socially constructed. So county lines is one of them. Currency is another one. And then I got into some, what I think are more interesting ones, okay? Congress is socially constructed. The Constitution of the United States was socially constructed. And then we'll get into some theological ones, like the canon of Scripture, the creeds of the early churches, and I want to talk a little about Christology. So I gave myself a challenge that I was only allowed to use examples that start with C, and we can have some fun with it. But that's the basic introduction to social constructivism. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I understand, like, when people, okay, there's like kind of these stages that happen if you notice it. Like like most people, you show up in a world, like you even gave the example when, parents are like, well, I don't want them to get baptized. I want them to pick their religion. And then you're like, then you're going to let them pick their language? Right? So human beings are...
Language is socially constructed, by the way.
Yes, we're self-interpreting species. So we are always interpreting ourselves and interpreting the world. And there's like a whole kind of... It's interpretations all the way up and all the way down, is Charles Taylor's line about it. And like, you're thrown or born or find yourself in the world, and by the time you have the tools of exercising your own agency, you're not like looking at raw sense data and deciding how you want to evaluate it. You're evaluating it with concepts, language, habits, patterns, prejudice, and all these things that you have inherited. And like the best example is like you have like identical twins, and they get adopted by different families. And one is like, oh, here's a Muslim family, and here's an atheist family, and the parents of the two were Christian. Like, you want to guess what those two identical twins think about the world? One prays 5 times a day, and the other tweets about that being stupid. And their biological Christian parents think they're both going to hell.
Wow.
That's like, but once we know, like, at some point in your life, you have this sense, Nietzsche uses language of, we're all born camels, right? We're pack creatures. We carrying around all this luggage that was handed to us. And then once you realize, oh, I'm a camel and I'm a beast of burden, carrying around all this baggage that I got just because I showed up here at this time in this body at this place.
Yes.
You go, oh, these are constructions. Bump that, you become a lion. And now you look at camels and you're like, I'm going to eat this junk. I don't want to be carrying anybody's crap.
Yeah.
And you have this like burst of aggression towards constructions. He said, and that's all well and good, but the world doesn't run if we're just a bunch of predators. Like, if you want to find something new, but not anew by becoming someone else's camel, you have to become a kid again, right? And so his third stage of this process is becoming a kid again, and you can see that I mean, if you've ever been a youth minister, you see it regularly. The middle schooler, by the time they graduate high school, at some point has decided certain constructions they were handed they don't like. And a good youth minister hands them the Sermon on the Mount to decide the ones that are stupid. That if you're gonna throw constructs under the bus, you should do it with that. But nonetheless, right? So to me, they're like you can recognize it, but until you do, alternative constructions or relativizing a construct is a threat to the person's core identity.
Yes.
And once you know it's a construction, you kind of you're like giggle, right? Like you're like, that's funny. Like you're gonna organize your entire political commitment over a bathroom sign.
Right.
Like, we're talking large numbers of uninsured people, arbitrary wars of choice, cutting funding to provide mosquito nets and AIDS drugs globally, saving hundreds of thousands of lives. And you're like, yeah, but have you seen gender-neutral bathrooms? Dear Lord, this is the undoing of everything that is right, true, and holy. And you're like, all right, buddy. You know, and but if someone sees those constructs as natural, right, part of the given world, you're attacking just reality.
Yeah.
If you see them as constructs, you're like, are these positive and lead to flourishing or not? Right? So let's say we had this construct called the Constitution, and then we were like, yeah, so about that all men bit. I think it's a cool idea. Have we considered expanding that to, I don't know, not owning men? Or what if women voted?
Oh, well, come on.
You know, it's a slippery slope. The next thing you know, they're going to call businesses people. You're going to act like a corporation has legal rights and free speech.
And money is speech.
Yeah, but they'll also still be legally protected from responsibility, the fallout for their actions and such. But, you know, like, why would we not want corporations to have all the perks of being an individual without the responsibility to anyone other than their shareholders? It's just how the world is, Bo. It's not personal.
This is why C is perfect to follow B with belonging, is because of somebody's identity. So if somebody believes that the Constitution was, like Scripture, delivered from on high in its final form and cannot be questioned, right, that they are an originalist, okay? One of the things that can be really difficult is when people go to seminary, and you and I have both been seminary professors, and we know, I'll give you 3 examples of something that's really like disorienting to people and why many people lose their faith in seminary is when you realize that something like, let's say, the creeds were socially constructed and not handed down from on high. When you look at church history and you learn really weird things, like, for instance, when the councils were, that's another C word, were originally called, who got to participate in them? And you begin to see how the sausage was made, and then it doesn't seem as appetizing once you realize how that all came together. There are such weird stories about the councils that delivered us the creeds. For instance, the bishops that were invited and who wasn't invited, right? And then you start asking the question, well, how did someone become a bishop back then? And you realize it wasn't the most pious person in the room all the time.
What? Because today, this is something we've grown beyond. Like, we actually have, when you see reverend in front of a name, one thing you could be completely sure of is they're not after money, they're not protecting child predators, and they really love their neighbors and think that being a biblical Christian involves deep care for others, and that's what we're going to be known for. You're saying that there was a point in church history where ecclesiastical leadership didn't correlate to Christ-like character, orientation, and commitment?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is true.
I don't know. Did you see everyone at the prayer breakfast? It was like packed full of like the people you need to decide what's in the Bible and in the creed. I believe in God the Father, maker of Trump, heaven and earth. And
So there continue to be weird stories. Like, for instance, one bishop was on his way in a horse-drawn wagon, and another bishop hired a band of pirates, mercenaries, to murder him, so that by the time he couldn't get there and vote on certain things, right? Whether, and this applies to the canon of scripture too, whether James should be included or Hebrews should be excluded. Like, when you start looking at how the creeds and the canon of scripture came together, it can be very discouraging and very disorienting. Because if you, like the Constitution, thought that it was delivered on high, never to be questioned or ratified, right, never to be amended or updated, it can be really hard to realize that the creeds, the canons, and the Constitution are all socially constructed.
but here's the bit that, look, all that's true, and I think, well, look, I don't worry about the creeds that much.
I can tell.
But I have, look, I did a whole series where I gave my interpretation of every line of it. So if I need to believe it, I know how I'm going to, and then see if they want to listen to me talk for 20 hours to discover what I mean. But but like, okay, have we read the Bible? It is packed full of this problem. This is what I don't get. Like even if you had that and you just, I don't know, read the Hebrew scriptures, this is Israel's predicament the whole freaking time.
Yes.
Or even, let's say you were worried about what was going on during all the councils. You could just read the actual early church fathers. They are complaining about this stuff.
Yes.
And most of the ones with saint in front of their name are complaining about the ones that don't have saint in front of their name doing fishy shit. Like Nazianzus at one point was just like, I don't think he's ever learned to pray, so I just don't listen to him. And then, how do you know he hasn't learned to pray? And then he said, I watched him. You know, where like you can see what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure his dad paid some money. That's how he got bishop. But like, I don't listen to him, right? And so, so often, the even the history of our sacred text and the Christian tradition and things is well aware this is a human predicament, right? So this, like, sometimes people hear these stories, Bo, and then they're like, well, F that. Like, why am I going to care about any of this?
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, what do you mean don't care about it?
Yeah.
This is like, why we care about it? It's because humans are this stupid. This is actually one of my big problems right now that I'm kind of frustrated by.
This is what I call the Santa Claus problem, by the way, that if Santa Claus isn't real, then let's not celebrate Christmas. That's my joke.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about St. Nicholas smacking Arius with his at Nicaea. You didn't hear it? You ever heard that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah.
I will, mostly because of the meme that says, I'm here for 2 reasons.
And what is it?
It's something like to hand out gold coins to children and smack heretics in the mouth, and I'm all out of gold coins.
My confirmation class, one of them made me a T-shirt that has, like, they drew a cartoon of Santa holding a sandal, and on top it said, I got sandal slapped by Saint Nick for being an evolutionary Aryan. Because I was working on my dissertation, which that's essentially what it is. But,
oh my Lord.
Anyway.
What's your problem right now, though?
Oh, like it's what okay, we all know like the moral cynics that do this game of like construction, and where they use the tapestry of like originalism and stuff like that, but deep down they know politics is purely about power and self-interest. But we need a bunch of naive dumb people we're just following the Constitution. Oh, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Like, anytime someone says that, I just think they would want to own slaves 100 years ago. when you hear these things where it's like, oh, I'm an originalist, I'm doing all this, but the people leading them, they're just like tooling around with these people. And Niebuhr has this bit about calling them, they're wise in their generation because they understand reality. The leaders, right, understand reality without illusion, and then manipulate the masses by helping them cherish a false illusion. And so, but then the naive, idealist, generic liberals, they actually think, that it is construction, so we got to figure this out. So what we really need is reason, education, and good faith dialogue, and that can resolve all of our conflicts because there's not inherent power plays going on. There's not inherent self-interest. Everyone's deeply, when they're honest, if we're just looking at human beings, we all want the general interest and well-being, and they're just stupid. This is the Democratic Party. Like, they just forget that human beings are human and we're gonna human, right? And if that's your ideology, like if you're like that, like a Morning Joe viewer, then you find out like, oh, look what happened with the creeds, what happened with the canon selection, look at this. All those little performances that you think are problematizing the ideal because you're a naive idealist and you're naive about human beings, and ultimately it's just stupid. Like, you underestimate the power of collective egotism, and so then the others are just going to run rampant over you. You think groups are going to willingly subordinate their self-interest to the general good if you just educate them right and get them to do reasonable things? And you're like, wow, but the Constitution says, and then you just get railroaded. Like this is what, like, when you look at the history of all these types of things we want to receive naively, some people receive them naively and get manipulated by power mongers, and then others believe that junk so much they trust that human beings are rational, reasonable, thoughtful things. We lapse into it on occasion, Bo, and it drives me up a wall. And like, just think, here's a good example. You remember when everybody was all pumped that we were going to get Mueller's investigation of the election? We're like, oh, finally, we got a real lawyer that's going to do this. We treated this political crisis going on, undermining the whole thing by people that say they believe the Constitution like a fundamentalist believes the Bible, and liberals were just waiting, like for Deus Ex Machina, good old Mueller, to show up and rescue democracy. And that whole 2 years we were waiting on him, slow playing, idealistically believing rational reflection and processing would lead to something. The other side's just running around calling it a witch hunt for 2 years, sends out the attorney general right before it gets released to say it exonerates Trump, and then nobody learns jack. The norms aren't self-enforcing, and pretending that power's not always at work and constructions aren't construction, so you should do them better, just leads where you get a whole bunch of people that have a bunch of sentimentality about their moral outrage, and they have no political strategy for dealing with the real world because they can't admit the reality of the real world, because it would mean they have to admit that they are just as selfishly organized and stuff as they want. And anyway, like, it just drives me up a wall. Like, and then I just can't believe people didn't pay attention. Like the Mueller report. Oh, that is like looking at your congregation at a church council meeting and thinking that if I just tell them that the denomination said the ecological crisis is real and it impacts people of color most and we should do something about it, it's going to move them to change their pocketbook and spending. Anyway, this is how this junk works. It drives me up a wall.
Trip, that was awesome. I can tell that you've been snowed in for 2 weeks. You have cabin fever energy today.
This is the longest I've gone without using a microphone, Bo.
Well, I'm glad I'm catching lightning.
I've relearned some algebra.
Okay.
To do some school from home.
Homeschooling. Oh boy, I'm catching lightning in a bottle this morning. All right, we're gonna move to our third letter. Ready? D.
Wait, what were the two other words with construction?
Christology and Constitution. And we can come back to Christology.
Well, that's dangerous. That's not a 20-minute discussion.
No.
You're like, Tripp has 2 books on it. Wonder what he'll say.
Well, all right. Letter 3. D. Oh, I got to start my timer. Hold on. Restart it. D is for deconstruction. The reason this has to follow immediately after C is a really important history lesson. So in the 20th century, something got popular called structuralism. And it is one of the most interesting things to introduce people to if they've never thought about it. Structuralism in its most basic form is this: that sounds were given shape as symbols and letters. If you string together a bunch of letters, you get a word. If you string together a bunch of words, you get a sentence. If you string together a bunch of sentences, you get a paragraph. String together a bunch of paragraphs, you get a chapter. String together a bunch of chapters, you get a book. String together a bunch of books, you get a library. That is structuralism at its most basic. If we arrange the basic building blocks in this configuration, it results in this wall. If you put up these walls in a certain configuration, it forms this room. If you put rooms together in a certain configuration, you get a building. And if you put the buildings together in a certain configuration, you get a city. Right? Structuralism was very popular, both in education and in medicine and in economics. And then something interesting happened, which is that some French thinkers and some feminist thinkers said, wait a minute, if this is all structurated, configured, constructed, it results in these buildings where we're second-class citizens or not paid at the same rate or limited in how high we can get promoted or whatever it is. And then this becomes what we call post-structuralism. What if we arranged the basic building blocks differently and got different walls and different rooms and different buildings and different cities? Could we live differently? So post-structuralism became a movement from which we get the English word deconstruction. And deconstruction is beautiful in its original form. It is, my favorite definition of it is loving the question enough to attempt a different answer and then coming into rest in that new answer, but turning around and interrogating the original question. That's my favorite definition of deconstruction. Here's why it's important, Tripp. Whenever anything leaks out of the academy or the original context in which it was birthed, for instance, like identity politics, it gets compromised and diluted, and it changes in its popular usage and no longer means what it meant in its original context. And then it gets overused. The new diluted version of it gets overused. And then people who never encountered the original version of it get tired of it, and it falls out of favor. This has happened with deconstruction because lots of people who are ex-evangelical or post-Christian or after faith or something like that use the word deconstruction, not in the sense that I just framed it, but what they mean is demolition or destruction or disbelief. And so what gets called deconstruction bothers me because it never passed through the constructive phase of analysis. It never looked at how things are constructed and how they might be rearranged to construct something different, We just knocked down the building and walked away from it. That's demolition. That's destruction. That's disbelief. And here's the thing. If you want to knock down the building and walk away, totally fine. If you want to disbelieve the way you were raised, I'm all into that. That may be an appropriate response. But don't call it deconstruction. Deconstruction is love. Deconstruction is finding an old barn and appreciating it enough to pull it apart, plank by plank, board by board, nail by nail, and then looking at the pile of rubble and saying, now what can we do with this? That's deconstruction. Burning the thing down because you don't appreciate it or you want to build something else in its place, that's destruction. That's demolition. It's not deconstruction. Deconstruction is love. Here's the other thing deconstruction's not. It's not renovation. And what most evangelicals mean when they say deconstruction is renovation. They have a wing of the house or a room that they want to update or innovate or do something with, but they start with the end in mind. That also is not deconstruction. That's renovation. And renovation might be appropriate, but don't call it deconstruction. End of rant.
And what are the other two D words?
Oh shoot, I have to look them up. Democracy is our other D word. Because if you believe in constructivism and you've deconstructed, we can reconfigure our democracy in a way that's more livable, right?
Theoretically.
That's why it's D is for deconstruction.
Oh, okay. At some point, I don't remember when this was, Bo. It was probably like 2009 or 2010.
Oh, the good old days.
The first time Catherine Keller came on the podcast.
Yeah.
And this came up,
yeah. I remember.
And she said, I said something about like, because she wrote this, together the first big book on post-structuralism and process, called Process and Difference, great volume. And we were talking about it, and she goes, yeah, well, deconstruction is just the recognition that, well, we've done a whole lot of constructing, and people that came before us did a lot of constructing, and, well, maybe we should just look at it and then say, maybe we could do that better. It's not a judgment of like that constructions are around and we live with them. It's just deciding whether or not we need to judge something we inherited. Is it final, or could we do better? She said it with like Catherine E's, like,
yeah.
Deconstruction's the recognition that constructions are just that, constructions. So why not do it better? And I think a lot of times that recognition, right? Even if we think of Derrida and the French deconstruction, it's like underneath it is when the logic of keeping constructions as natural givens to reality to no longer question, that presumes the constructions correspond to something eternal or natural or final. And that is a power play. Or the fun term is logocentrism. And, at that point, maybe we go back to our Christology bit. We're in the tradition that crucifies logoses. And then it reconstructs itself. Or you could say resurrects itself. And it doesn't resurrect itself into the world as it was. It resurrects it into new.
Yes.
Newness. And anyway. But yeah, and when it goes to democracy, Bo,
yeah,
I think we got to we got some serious problems.
Well, this is why I thank God for President Trump.
Oh,
He's
man.
my president, and I thank God for him because he has given us the opportunity, right? He says the quiet part out loud and has exposed what was hidden before. He has essentially named the elephant in the room and provided us an opportunity to no longer participate in the fiction, the fantasy, I'm very distracted by your blurry camera.
I have no idea what just happened.
It was the smoke. It was the smoke.
And now it's like trying to focus on.
You have a film over your lens.
Look at it. It's clear. If it's like,
there you go.
There we
you
go.
did it. You refocused it. Oh, that was a magic trick. That was hilarious.
Man, if I got another magic trick to show you, but we can't live stream this magic trick.
Okay. So, I am grateful for this moment when we no longer have to pretend that everything's okay, and that if we just keep tweaking and making slight improvements, that we will come to a perfected version, right, of what we had. So back to deconstruction real quick. So here's the thing. My favorite way to introduce this to people, my wife's a gardener, and sometimes if a plant has been in the same pot for too long and been too successful, it becomes what we call root bound or pot bound, where the roots actually begin to grow around themselves into the shape of the pot. To love that plant is to do the painful process of removing it from its binding limitation, its pot, and to put your thumbs in there. Bo's computer. Is it giving feedback?
It's not feedback. You can just hear it going.
Okay.
You can ignore the chat, Bo. We don't want to interrupt you.
All right. So you put your thumbs in the roots and you begin to break it, right? Pull it apart. And that's love. It is a painful process. But then you put it in a bigger pot with some new nutrients. That for me is deconstruction. We have to do it with our traditions, with our institutions, with our denominations, and with our democracy. They have become pot bound, root bound. And to love them is to pull them out of their container and to break them apart. This for me is the liturgy of life, right? That so many saints talk about. That Jesus receives, inherits the bread, right? There's a givenness to it. He is given the bread. He receives it. He then, second act of the litany is he blesses it. He said, this is good. Third, he breaks it so that he can share it. This for me is the liturgy of life. And in our traditions, our denominations, our institutions, and our democracy, there is a givenness to them. We have inherited them. Now we bless them. We say, these are good. There's something good in these. Then, through deconstruction, we break them. That is the thumbs in the roots, right? We take them out of their binding pots and we loosen lovingly the roots, break them apart so that we can share them with those in need, those who don't have, those whom we identify with. So that is why
I like your whole Eucharist mode here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to remember it and then discover that I thought of it later.
I think I got it from Anne Lamott.
Okay, well, then it'll be multiple appropriations. But she got it from Jesus.
That might be true.
Yeah, and that's out of copyright date.
I think she got it from Hildegard or something. I can't remember it, the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, okay, I like that a lot. can I, in my last 2 weeks, especially since Alicia left for her trip, and I'm the only parent home, the amount of time I've had without children prior to like 10 o'clock, very small. So I've been leaving myself notes in my Google Doc of stuff that if I had a life, I would explore further. And can I tell you my democracy concern that I wrote down this week?
Yes.
Because I don't know if democracy is interested in the Eucharistic table, Bo.
Okay.
All right. So democracy theoretically isn't just about taking a position, but it's the art of taking, forming, listening, and reforming solutions across difference. It's a deliberative and not a performative process, right? That's when we do it well. Democracy is not a performance, but deliberation. It's the solution to how we relate across difference with very different groups and incentives, and choose that we'd rather figure out life together using ears and mouths rather than, I don't know, shooting citizens in the street. But then you think about democracy in our own moment. The time needed to make a democratic decision is increasing. It's getting more and more complex. The world's faster, more dynamic, and there are more things we have to take into account before we could even make an informed deliberative decision. And there's more perspectives and voices to include in it. Think of who got to vote and be a part of the process originally to now, right? Then throw on top of that our culture has continued to diversify and it's less traditional. There's not like a monologic or dominant expression of Americanism. You got multi-religious, ethnic, you got all the different cultures that have come to be a part of this nation. And so there's so much less assumed when you get to the democratic table for deliberative processing that it increases the demand on listening and understanding the other than before. So while the speed to deal with the challenges we face, we need faster decision making because everything's moving faster.
Yeah.
The time needed to do it well democratically is being increased. And then you throw a third variable on it that makes me go, oh my goodness, we might need a Eucharistic pot, or someone might just start throwing pots. Now more of our decisions have longer and irreversible horizons to them. And so they should even get more deliberation. Think genetic engineering or AI or the ecological crisis or nuclear weapons or any of this kind of stuff. And so if the timeline of impact is bigger, the speed at which we need to make decisions if we're going to respond to the world as best we can is getting shorter. But then the number of perspectives and voices are bigger, and the amount of shared values and narrative that we have is smaller. You have a cross pressure going on in our democratic experiment that's really new. And all the while this is happening, we got algorithms self-sorting us into tribes, making the other monstrous. We got self-sorting at all sorts of levels, right? 50 years ago, the majority of white churches in America would be purple politically. And now they're much closer to ideological parity. So you see, there's so many different features going on that the activity of democracy is harder to trust. And so what's the biggest temptation? Use democracy against itself. Get someone from your team in charge, and then, I don't know, be like, what if we pretend this whole year is just one day in Congress, which is what we're doing, so we don't have to follow any of the rules. Let's not hold accountable, giving the executive more and more power over the last 50 years. Why would we want the state to decide who we attack or who we give tariffs to? Why would we? What if we just put a random tech billionaire who was emailing Epstein on Christmas morning to see what day he could come over to his island for the craziest party, in charge of Doge with a chainsaw and his tag team partner Big Balls to go chopping through things we do. Like, you just look at our situation, and like doing that makes me go, okay, like you at least understand. It starts to make sense why more and more people go, what is required to do this well is really hard. And my resentment and anger and frustration, my place in this world is more and more tenuous. So what do we do? What do we do? And when the structures of the democracy yield more and more power to an executive, so that the burden is not actually placed on the body that is the closest you can get to representatives of the state, this happens. Throw in gerrymandering, throw in campaign. So many things about our system has been perverted because the actual decision-making process is too demanding to be committed to it to win elections. And I don't know what to do about this. This just got me more depressed. This is Tripp's note to himself this past week.
It's a fascinating concept that it actually takes more time the less assumptions and agreement that are in place. In an age of speed and microwaves and drive-throughs and, right, what do they call it? There's a phrase. Hold on. They don't like build washer and dryer or lawnmowers to last very long. It's called planned obsolescence. That's what it's called. That actually, in an age of microwaves and drive-throughs and planned obsolescence, things take longer. It's wild. I'm going to play with that. The accordion of time. Hey, we made it through.
Accordion. I like that, Bo. Yeah.
Well, you know where I first heard that is during COVID, that days took forever, but months disappeared. And that's when I first heard about the accordion of time. My favorite comparison to that is...
America's a giant polka dance, but everybody just decided it's so dangerous, we're just all going to put on football pads with razors on the elbows.
Wow.
Dance around.
If you've ever been in a movie, like paid for a movie that is awful and you're thinking about walking out, like minutes drag on, but you could be on a road trip with a friend that you're enjoying and, days disappear. That's the accordion of perceived time.
You want to know one of the other ideas I had, Bo?
Yeah.
And this is I had last week when I knew we weren't going to get to talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Next year, I want to do, because like camp is always like in October.
Yeah.
Like the 6 months before that.
Yeah.
I want to do another event.
Okay.
It has to be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an actual spiritual retreat. Like I'm not going in a tent though, but you know what I mean? Like we go somewhere and so only people come and you're like, no, this is an actual spiritual retreat where everything's like no recording anything. No, I mean, we can have talks that set up stuff or whatever, but it's like very discussion, hang out, chill. And everyone has to lock their phone up when they get there.
Whoa.
Or we have a phone zone where if you have to go call family or whatever, you have to go to this one area.
Yeah.
But like, it's basically like you're just going to go hang out. I mean, there's stuff structured like, oh, well, this is like contemplative prayer time, or this is like we're all going to cook a meal and hang out. This is board game night. This is go around a fire and drink too much and tell silly stories. This is like, but like I was sitting there, I was like, oh, and I was vocalizing to Elgin. He's like, oh, do you like? Are you going to go do your thing with Bo? I was like, no, I gotta go do all this other stuff. His face was just like, and I'm like, what's that about? And he's like, Dad, Mom and I've talked about it. Like, you're a lot nicer after you hang out with Bo.
No, come on.
Like, everyone likes it. Like, everyone because you haven't really made lots of friends in Greensboro that are like past acquaintance, and like all your real friends are on Zoom. And I don't know if you've hung out with you when you aren't spending time with people.
That's amazing.
Because I realized, like, every other point in my life, I was like clergy, so you obviously spend time with people, or like a professor, and then you have all your students and your faculty.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like on the internet.
No.
And like, so I'm doing intentional things, like try to connect more people here. But then I was like, well, I brought this up, and I'm like, I bet there are other people that have the same thing, and it would be a lot easier to do than Theology Beer Camp, which takes all year to plan, and arrange, and this, but where it's where we go, okay, if you're coming, and then like we have like a certain things where everyone that's coming volunteers to either do this or to bring this.
Yeah.
And it's like very much just like homebrewed people that want to hang out.
Yeah.
And do stuff. And then like we could do TNT that's not recorded, where all of our friends that like to hang out in the chat now interrupt us and say stuff. Because we don't we don't this is what I'm talking about.
That is a fascinating idea. I would go to that, and that's saying something. So
no, you have to go to it. I just to clarify how this works. I brought it up here because underneath it was like, what if Bo and I were just like, this is a Theology Nerd camping trip, but for adults. Like, we don't have youth, so we don't have to use tents, Bo. We need beds.
Yeah.
Beds and air conditioning.
Like glamping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, we got in the chat. People are already. See, this is what I'm talking about. And we're not. I'm not flying 30 speakers in. So, like the budget is $100,000 less than Theology Beer Camp.
Oh, mama!
It wouldn't even be hard not to lose money.
And everyone would have to know their own itinerary and when they're arriving at the.
Oh yeah, not planning jobs. I'm just what happens there. We got blocks of time, and then when you get your ticket to come, we'll have like a form that's like, here are the gifts I can bring. Yeah. Here are the things I can. So someone's like, I'm going to orchestrate a giant capture the flag game. Oh. And we're just like, great, because you'll have some youth ministers, they're like down for crazy games. Yeah. You got Lori in the chat's like would facilitate. Like she'll organize the contemplative prayer thing. We can see how your centering prayer experience is going, though.
Or not. When I'm in home renovation mode, I literally do my church work, and then I go home and I start construction.
You got to tell everyone you're doing Brother Lawrence prayer. You know how he's like, oh, even washing dishes can be prayer. Home renovation.
That's true. I pray while I do it, but mostly for help. By the way, I had to cut an electrical cord last week because they were going to charge me so much money to do it. So not only did I turn off the breaker to this appliance, but I turned off the power to the house, and then had a neighbor stand on the porch and watch me in case I got electrocuted. They could call 911. And I used a plastic pipe cutter, and I cut through this thing to make sure I had rubber shoes on and rubber gloves and a plastic cutter, and I turned off the power to the house, and I cut through this thing. But before I did, I prayed to St. Anthony, who is the patron saint of craftsmen.
Okay, if you said electricians, then I was gonna...
Oh! Side note about retreats. This is a really funny story to me. So the clergy retreat for my Methodist conference is in the town just north of me at this monastery, right? And everyone is so excited to be going to a clergy retreat and B, at this monastery because it's sort of exotic to them, in southern Idaho. But the funny thing is, I hate retreats normally because I'm a wanderer. I get a good idea. Like you just gave me this this thing about the doing dishes, the Brother Lawrence thing. And if I was at a retreat and and I got that idea, I might go for a walk down the road, to the 7-Eleven and think about it, right? I wander a lot. But I hate being at clergy
Why
retreats.
the 7-Eleven?
Diet Dr. Pepper sounds good sometimes.
Well, they got that good crushed ice.
That's true. Or a black and mild, just pick one up and smoke it on the way back. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Well, see, this retreat, Lori and I will have the cigars covered.
Okay.
There will not be the need for black and milds, I promise.
Okay. So, anyway, whenever I'm at conferences or retreats, and I wander a lot, like at beer camp, I like to see what's happening on all 4 stages before I settle into anyone, right? But some people think it's like disapproval or I'm disinterested. And so I spend the entire time explaining myself, and it's not an enjoyable experience. So normally I have no interest in going to retreats or conferences. But this one you talked about, it intrigues me.
But have you ever seen those conferences that are organized like an unconference?
Yeah, I tried to go to one.
Talking about. I want to do that. Where you
do you remember
you could
Carol
be like, this
Howard?
is called the Wonder.
Do you
This is
remember
the Wonder
Carol
session
Howard?
with Bo.
Okay.
And they get there and they're like,
Just
oh,
walk-
we're going
yeah,
to
we're
do
gonna-
some wonder. No, they think we're going to explore wonder, right? And you're like, all right, we're going to go for a walk down to 7-Eleven.
Here's what we're gonna meditate on. In the Lord of the Rings, it says
do I know Lord of the Rings? Yes, Bo. Go ahead.
it says not all who wander are lost.
Yeah, obviously.
But what we're gonna do is we're gonna each hold and walk around the campus that not all who are lost wander. And we're just gonna sit with that.
That's all Pomo.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I'm in. Count me in.
All right, good. That was all the other things that were on my notepad are really inflammatory that I think I might dial back if I just relax a bit at this point. Because I still got an hour and a half before I have to pick people up from school, Bo.
Very nice. It's 10:45 my time, and I actually promised someone I would have an email sent to them by 11. So I'm going to go type up that email.
There you go. 7-Eleven has solid Cuban sandwiches. That's what...
Is that true? Cabanos?
I mean, that's what Evan says.
I trust him. This is the Evan that won Au Contraire this year?
No. This is
Different Evan. Oh.
Yeah.
I was reading it in that Evan's voice.
No, Damon won.
Oh,
They have
yes.
They're Damon Garcia, Evan Garcia, same last name.
Oh, interesting. No,
It's okay, though. You just got it wrong. It's okay.
I know.
You're in the context of grace.
Thank you.
But Evan's also Cuban, so.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's that's. And there's blueberry coffee at 7-Eleven. Tim Whitaker from the New Evangelicals walks to the 7-Eleven every morning and gets blueberry coffee. And yeah, he had people just harassing him in some post and was just like, you're a heretic and blah blah, laying it at him. He's going to burn in hell or whatever. And he responded to this person's comment and was like, or he gets a guy was like, what kind of minister would ever condone blah 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 blah, this kind of thing. And he's like, well, my friend Tripp is a reverend and a theology PhD, and he thinks I'm Christian. And I didn't, I got tagged, right? So then I look under it, and I was like, I am here to confirm that Tim, Whitaker is indeed a Christian, and as a reverend, I would like to embrace him despite all his deficiencies in the context of grace. But as a professor of theology, I'd like to note that he drinks blueberry coffee every morning. And the blueberry adjunct to coffee really masks and covers up the very gift the coffee beans and water bring to it. Much like nationalism when applied to Christianity. It's technically got Christianity in it somewhere, but it's been masked so much it does not resemble what the intended beverage or something like that. And then that guy clicked over to me and started leaving horrible messages at me on Substack, and I had to block him.
No, that's a sad ending.
Well,
it was a good story though. I like the good story.
Yeah. Anyway, you're gonna go right here now.
I have a benediction for us.
You do? That's good, because if you don't, we're in trouble.
It's a two-parter. I'll be your blueberry. And I'll see you in Valhalla, brother.